I want to do a video about a couple of articles I read and some interesting things that I was thinking about. One of the articles was entitled Top 100 Largest and Fastest Growing Churches. And in case you didn't know, we have mega churches. And I've heard the term for a while, but I just thought it just meant a really big church. Well, actually, there's a definition for that name. In other words, if you have 2,000 or plus people in attendance at your church has reached the level and has been bestowed upon the title as a megachurch. If your church has grown and it's to the point of where it has 10,000 plus members a week, you have attained the title of gigachurch. Now, in this article, it says, these fastest growing churches, and it's, we'll look at the numbers and look at all the people that joined, and well, is numerical growth, is that the growth that God's looking at? Or is the growth that God is looking at the radical change in a person's life to where they no longer do what their flesh wants, but they're obedient to God and they're sold out to Him and they do what He says? In other words, they've laid down things in their lives where it's like, Lord, you told me that, hey, I got to give up NASCAR, got to give up my football, got to give up my soap operas, got to give up my TV, I got to give up my wife, my kids, my family, anything that comes between you and me, God, I give that up to you and I follow you. And whatever the stuff that gets in the way, get rid of that too, because it's all yours. I don't want anything to stand in the way. I don't want anything to be an idol between me and you, to where I look to and have comfort in my 401k or my checking account or my job or my position of whatever I'm at. I give that all up and I'm a bond servant. Lord, whatever you tell me to do, let me do it. And if I don't, spank me, let me know what I did wrong so I can repent, and let me get back to doing what you want me to do. I mean, that's the growth that Jesus wants. But instead, we've changed the message of what Jesus preached, and now it's all about life skills. It's all about self-image, self-improvement, self-confidence. It's being victorious in your finances and asking God for Him to give you anything that you ask, regardless of your spiritual condition. And that's not what the Bible preaches. That's not what God says. And so I would be really hesitant to say that these churches are growing, at least in the way that God dictates what growth is or says that growth is. I mean, getting a bunch of people to show up, if you tell them what they want to hear, they'll show up. If you provide for their flesh, they'll show up. And if they make Jesus an accessory instead of being everything in their lives, that they surrender to Him, and they don't surrender anything, they just kind of add Jesus to the mix, so they're kind of, okay, well, I've got God, and I've got my job, and my retirement account, and my family, so I'm good to go. They've covered all the bases. That's not what it's all about. The other article I ran into was called Worship Goes Big Screen with Hi-Fi and Direct Deposit Tithing. And it kind of goes along with these mega churches and giga churches in that to draw this many people, you got to buy a lot of equipment. You got to pay a lot of people, audio visual equipment. And in this article, it says that last year alone, that churches in the United States spent $8.1 billion on audio visual equipment. Wow. The first question that came to my mind was, if you're not preaching God and His Word, And if you're not being obedient to Him, and God's presence isn't in your church, and His power isn't there, you're going to have to replace it with something. And you're going to have to replace it with another source, another power, because there's a vacuum there. And of course, if you want your church to grow at such a great rate, to be a mega church and eventually be a giga church, you have to put on a show. You have to preach what people want to hear instead of what they need to hear, which is repent, surrender, or you're going to perish. Die to yourself, pick up your cross, surrender all. Jesus said, if you got to love God first, and if you love your husband, wife, brother, sister, or anybody else more than me, you're in big trouble. But we don't talk about that. So we take a man-centered message, we take this $8.1 billion worth of audio-visual equipment, and we spread that man-centered message to the masses. And it's crippling the church. Now, I'm not saying that audio-visual equipment is bad or that it's evil, but here's another question that people should be asking. Lord, we've got $8.1 billion. What do you want me to do with it? Should I spend it on a big screen and projectors and sound systems and sound booths and soundboards and production equipment and the whole 9 yards? Or, Lord, what do you want me to do? You what? You want me to feed the hungry and clothe the naked and help out the homeless? But I'm not going to get any return on that. Oh, it doesn't matter because it's all yours anyway, and that's what you want to do with it, God? Okay. I don't think a lot of these churches do that. $8.1 billion. For what? Just so we can see the pastor on a big screen that makes him 20 feet tall? Wow. Talk about man-centered. I don't know. Maybe we should ask God what He wants us to do with our money instead of just getting with CEOs and market research teams and asking them on what we should do with His money. Some churches have started to have fancy lighting, rock music, big shows that will draw people in. They have motorcycles driving up on stage. You'll have special effects teams come in with lighting and explosions and all kinds of things like you'd see at a rock concert. And it costs hundreds of thousands of dollars throughout the year. I mean, I don't know if that's the kind of thing that God wanted. I mean, we don't see it in the Bible, and Jesus said we're supposed to be servants and to preach the gospel, that the believers are supposed to go out and witness and evangelize. In other words, that they're to tell and be the testimony of what God did in their life. It's not saying, God didn't say, okay, go out into the world and bring your neighbors and your friends and bring them to church so the pastor can tell them what God did. No, we don't see that. We see that we are given the Great Commission to go forth and to preach the gospel and to minister to each other, to bear each other's burdens, to be the light to the world.